Hey y'all, welcome back to another new video. So a lot of people on my TikTok account wanted me to make longer Harry Potter videos, and so that is exactly what I am doing. So the first one I make, well technically the first one I made was the Death Eater tattoo, but the first like sit down talking one I'm making is one on the noble and most ancient House of Black. And there's a lot of information. Honestly, getting this video ready was like doing a research project for school, so I hope you guys are ready. Like, go get a snack because this might be long. The noble and most ancient House of Black is one of the largest, wealthiest, and oldest pureblood wizarding families in Britain. It is a member of the Sacred 28, which is the 28 pureblood wizarding families that were believed to still be pureblood by the 1930s. And pretty much all wizarding families are related to the House of Black in one way or another, but I'll get into that more later. The family is basically a symbol in the wizarding world for wealth and prestige. They're just really known for being like rich and powerful. Their huge family tree is displayed on a tapestry in the drawing room of Grimmauld Place in London, England. This tapestry, the construction of it was started in the Middle Ages, and it shows the dominant family line all the way to the death of the most recent members. By the late 1900s, the male line of the family had become extinct with the deaths of Sirius and Regulus Black because neither of them had children. However, the female line does continue with the likes of the Malfoy family, Teddy Lupin, and Bellatrix Lestrange's illegitimate daughter Delphine. Their origins can be traced all the way back to the Middle Ages, and they claim to have purely magical ancestry. However, Sirius informs Harry that this may not be completely true, and that basically they would just write muggles or squibs off of their family tree and pretend they never existed. Overall, they place huge importance on blood purity. They basically think of themselves as wizarding royalty, and they hate squibs, muggles, muggle-born, and what they call blood traders, which is basically people that sympathize for all those other groups. Family motto is, and I might pronounce this wrong, toujours pure, which means always pure in French, and some of them take this so seriously that they will even go as far as inbreeding to keep their blood purely magical. Over history, many members of the family have practiced the dark arts. A lot of them even followed Voldemort up to the point of taking the Dark Mark themselves and joining the Death Eaters. And the ones that didn't, they still sort of believed in his idealization of blood purity and purifying the wizarding race. A few of the family members did disagree with this family ideology. Sirius Black, for example, and Nymphadora Tonks were both members of the Order of the Phoenix and regarded as blood traders. Andromeda Tonks marries a Muggle-born, and even after the war, Draco Malfoy rids his new life of the idealization of blood purity. Other families didn't go as far to join the Death Eaters, but did other things to persecute non-magical people. For example, family member Araminta Melufla, I think, tried to get a bill passed through the ministry that would make Muggle hunting legal.
What?
Yes.
Like they would kill?
Yes. Others still sort of got cold feet when they realized just how far Voldemort was willing to go for power. As I mentioned in the introduction, when Sirius died, so did the male bloodline. But the female bloodline still continues through many different channels. For example, through the descendants of Bellatrix Lestrange, Andromeda Tonks, and Narcissa Malfoy, as well as his second cousin, once removed Arthur Weasley, and many more that are more distantly related still. So now I'm going to go through all the different family members. So we're going to start with the people that are directly related to the Black family through marriage. So Bob Hitchens is a Muggle related to the Black family through his marriage to Lola Black. Casper Crouch marries Charisse Black. Charles Potter marries Doria Black. Drula Roaster marries Cygnus Black III. Ella May marries Cygnus Black I. Alfred Longbottom marries Calidora Black. Herbert Burke marries Bellowina Black. Esther Gamp marries Sirius Black II. Ignatius Pruitt marries Lucretia Black. Irma Crabbe marries Pollux Black. Jimbo Blishwick marries Misa Pinoa Black. Lucius Malfoy marries Narcissa Black. Lysandra Yaxley marries Arcturus Black. Magenta Tripe marries Lycoris Black III. Adolphus Lestrange marries Bellatrix Black Lestrange. Septimus Weasley marries Cinderella Black. Ted Tonks marries Andromeda Black. Ursula Flint marries Phineas Nigellus Black. And Violetta Bulstrode marries Cygnus Black II. Through marriage, you're probably starting to recognize a lot of names, and so now we'll go through even more characters that are more distantly related. So Arthur Weasley is the son of Cedrella Weasley, maiden name Black. He marries Molly Weasley, whose maiden name is Pruitt, and she herself was the niece of Lucretia Pruitt, maiden name Black. So already we're seeing how their family is sort of inbred to a certain extent. Molly's brothers, Gideon and Fabian Pruitt, were also nephews of Lucretia Pruitt. Therefore, Bill, Charlie, Fred, George, Percy, Ron, and Ginny are all related to the Blacks through their paternal grandmother, Cedrella Weasley Black. and their great-great aunt, Lucretia Pruitt Black. Then all of the Weasley's children's children, including Victoire Weasley, Dominique Weasley, Rose Weasley, Molly Weasley II, Lucy Weasley, Roxanne Weasley. Their paternal great-grandmother is Cedrella Weasley, maiden name Black, and their great-great-aunt is Lucretia Pruitt Black. Through Harry's marriage to Ginny, then their children are also related to the Blacks. Lily Potter II, James Potter II, and Albus Potter are all also related to the Blacks because their maternal great-great-grandmother is Cedrella. They're also potentially related to Doria Potter, however, we're not actually sure if Harry is related to Doria or not. Nymphadora Tonks, daughter of Andromeda Tonks, is obviously related to the Blacks, and therefore Remus Lupin, through marriage, is related to the Blacks and their son, Teddy Lupin. Draco Malfoy is the son of Narcissa Malfoy, maiden name Black, and therefore his son Scorpius is also related to the Black family. And the Malfoy family becomes related to the Blacks through marriage. James Potter I is distantly related to the Blacks through his son's marriage to Ginny Weasley. And like I mentioned, he also might possibly be related to Doria Potter, which would put their family in much closer to relations to the Black if that's true, but we're not sure. So then of course Harry Potter is related to the Blacks through marriage, and all of their children are related to the Blacks. Arminta Malflua, that Muggle hater I mentioned earlier, is the cousin of Walburga Black and the niece of Pollux Black and Irma Crabbe. Hermione Granger is now related to the Blacks, which they probably hate because of her marriage to Ron Weasley. Fleur Delacour is related to the Blacks through her marriage to Bill Weasley. Audrey Weasley is now related to the Blacks through her marriage to Percy. And Angelina Johnson is now related to the Blacks through her marriage to George Weasley. And of course, all of these children, all of the Weasley children, all of the Potter children, and all of the Granger Weasley children are related to the Blacks. So Frank Longbottom is related to Calidora Longbottom, who used to be a Black. And so then Alice Longbottom is related through marriage as well, then so is Neville. Barty Crouch Sr., his mother is Charisse Crouch, maiden name Black. So then Barty Crouch Jr. is also related to the Black family. And finally we have Delphine. Her mom is Bellatrix Lestrange, maiden name Black, and her father, Tom Marvolo Riddle, then becomes related to the Blacks through Delphine. That was quite a whirlwind, but I think it kind of shows how crazy and complex and like how interrelated all of the characters really are. The tree tapestry we see was interfered with. So we find out through Sirius Black that his mother would literally blast people, including himself, off their family tree if she viewed them as not good enough, not pure enough to be a part of their family, if they didn't live up to those strong ideals. So we can assume that anyone that is still on that tapestry has lived up to their strong ideals of blood purity. Some even went as far as to marry their own cousins. So Orion and Walburga Black were second cousins and they still got married, and the whole family has had a history of inbreeding, which accounts for low fertility rates. And also the average lifespan for a Black is only 59.5 years, which is much below other wizards or people's lifespan expectancy, and this may be due to the high rates of inbreeding that we see. Some of the Blacks, like I mentioned, have been disowned. So the disowned Blacks that we know of are Edwardus Black, but we actually don't know why he was disowned. We just see him smudged off the family tree. And Lola Black, she was disowned for marrying a Muggle. Phineas Black was a Muggle's rights supporter, so he got disowned. Marius Black was born a squib, so of course that was very shameful, and they disowned him.
So is that when they're born without
magical powers, what Filch is. Cedrella Black was disowned for her marriage to blood traitor Septimus Weasley. The whole Weasley family is considered to be blood traitors because of their sympathy for Muggleborns and Muggles. Andromeda Black was disowned for her marriage to Ted Tonks, he's a Muggleborn. And Sirius Black is considered a blood traitor for his sympathy for Muggles and for joining the Order of the Phoenix and fighting against Lord Voldemort. As well as his uncle Alfred Black, who was basically just disowned for still supporting Sirius. So all wizarding families are somehow distantly related to the Blacks. This is because all wizarding families were once pureblood, and all pureblood families are related. Even Muggle-born people are descendants of squibs that were at one point from pureblood families. So they're all related to each other, some more closely than others, though. So like, I don't really think like Harry and Ginny being together is as much of inbreeding as, you know, some of the stuff that we saw in other aspects, like second cousins getting married. But the families that are more directly related to the Blacks are as followed, and some of them will be very recognizable from the series. We have the Max family, the Blishwick family, the Flints, the Hitchens, Gamp, Bulstrode, Burke, Yaxley, Macmillan, Crabbe, Potter, Peveril, Gaunt, Longbottoms, the Fortescues, the Weasleys, the Delacours, the Johnsons, the Grangers, the Crouches, the Pruitts, Rosiers, Lestranges, Malefuas, Tonks, Malfoys, and Lupins. The Black family was known to have a certain look about their appearance. They were thought to be very attractive, very regal looking. They often had pale skin and dark hair and dark eyes. Even Bellatrix Lestrange was still described as pretty, even though she lost some of her prettiness in Azkaban because she kind of went crazy. There are some exceptions to this though. Sirius Black III was gray-eyed instead of black eyes. Andromeda Tonks had light brown hair, and Narcissa Malfoy is blonde with blue eyes. The family is known to be very wealthy. It is one of the reasons probably for their arrogance. In 1993, Sirius Black uses money from his family's vault, Vault 711, to buy Harry his firebolt. How he got it is unsure, whether he still had access to the vault after being disowned, or maybe that uncle that I mentioned that still supported him was giving him money from it, who knows. But when Sirius dies in 1996, Harry inherits everything he has. He inherits his home, he inherits his house elf, and he inherits Sirius's personal vault, which, while of course not having as much gold in it as the Black Vault did, it still was said to have quite a bit of gold in it, and it was way down deep in Gringotts, which signals that it is a high security vault still. So the family was very, very wealthy. And then this is the part I think is really cool, is the etymology of their name. So black, when you think of it as a color, I mean actually it's not a color, it's the absence of light. It's often associated with evil, darkness, and witchcraft, but also with prestige and sophistication, which I think all fits the Black family very well. Other cultures actually associated with life and prosperity. In ancient China, black was symbolic for water, which is coincidentally the element of Slytherin house, which is where most blacks ended up. In older English, black represents darkness and ignorance, which I think is a good allusion to their prejudice. Additionally, the Old English bloek, or black, is meant to be pale, which they were all very pale. The family was known to reuse a lot of first names, and many of these names, or all of them actually, came from stars. And so I'll go through those meanings, but just know that once a family member is disowned, their name won't be repeated again. So Alfred is the brightest star in the constellation Hydra. Andromeda is a constellation in the northern hemisphere, as well as the name of a whole galaxy. Arcturus is the brightest star in the constellation Boots the Herdsman. Bellatrix is a star in the constellation Orion. Cassiopeia is a constellation in the northern hemisphere. Cygnus is a constellation in the northern hemisphere, also known as the Northern Cross. Delphinus is a constellation in the northern sky close to the celestial equator, and Alpha Delphini is a main sequence star of the constellation. Draco is a constellation of the northern hemisphere. Orion is a well-known constellation in the northern hemisphere. Phoebe is close to the other name for the sun god Apollo, Phoebus, and it's also the name of one of the moons of Saturn. Pollux is a star in the Gemini constellation. Regulus is the brightest star in the Leo constellation. Scorpius is a constellation in the southern hemisphere, which personally I think is interesting that he is in the southern hemisphere and Draco is a constellation in the northern hemisphere. I think it kind of represents how Draco sort of raised his son to almost be the opposite of how he was raised. Sirius is the brightest star in the constellation Canis Major, which he's a dog, so that kind of makes sense. To wrap it up, I just have some Black family fun facts for you guys. So the first is that in 2006, J.K. Rowling donated a hand-drawn Black family tree to a charity auction for the charity Book Aid, and it was bought for 30,000 euros, and it was bought for 30,000 euros on behalf of Daniel Radcliffe, which I think is really cute. Phineas's name is misspelled on the tapestry we see in the Order of the Phoenix movie. It is possible that some of the disowned males did have heirs that are still living, and we just don't know about them because they got smudged off the family tree. So it is possible that the male line is still continuing through one of the disowned members. It's kind of sexist to care more about the male bloodline than the female bloodline, in my opinion anyways. Despite their huge support of Voldemort, they actually weren't really directly related to him at all until the birth of Delphini, and strangely enough, through the marriage of Ginny Weasley to Harry Potter, because Harry Potter is related to Voldemort through both of their shared relatives, the Peveril brothers. So I think that's interesting that like the person they tried to kill ended up being like how they finally became related to their like person they idolized. So that is all I have on the Black family tree. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I'm really down to start making longer Harry Potter videos. If you guys have any requests for YouTube videos, so basically anything that's longer than a minute would go on YouTube instead of TikTok, please just let me know down in the comments. Okay, bye y'all!